good to see you. Please take a seat for me. It's incredible to see this group of people finally coming back together. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, so fantastic to be back in Abidjan. Joining me now, we have Abdul Samad Rabiu, the Executive President of the BUA Group. A round of applause for my guest. I don't know if you can tell my excitement that we're back together, and I have to say, everyone having these conversations before the conference started. We've got a room packed full of people. We've had these conversations virtually. It showed our resilience. It showed our adaptability. And Abdul Samad, you've been part of that African story, and I'm so delighted to be on stage with you today. We didn't anticipate the pandemic, and it showed Africa's vulnerabilities to a large degree, our lack of capacity, but we threw every possible fiscal and monetary tool we had. And now we're hit with a new reality. No one anticipated that a war between Russia and Ukraine could result in Africa being, part of the collateral damage. Did you anticipate this? I mean, were you ready for more shocks?
Certainly not. I wasn't mourning Eleni again. Yes, it is a big issue, really, because with the world still reeling, from the effects of the pandemic, the COVID-19, in 2020, and all the disruptions, and now this war. And of course, any war is not good for anybody.
Did you think, oh no, not another shock?
Not another.
What are we going to do?
Especially for us here in Africa, because Africa, we are the most vulnerable. So really, this war, has created, a serious catastrophe for Africa. As you know, Africa imports, a lot of what we consume. Over 80% of what we consume in Africa in terms of food is imported. That is one. Number two, the effects of the war, especially as far as, say, for example, wheat, which Africa imports almost 55 million tons per annum every year, has really created a big, serious issue for.
Could you quantify that for us? What would it look like? And I know that we have so many countries that rely on imports, and it's not just grain, by the way. It's also sunflower oil,
so many
oil
other
prices,
things, even energy,
yeah,
for example. Yes. Well, to start with, as I said earlier, we import a lot of what we eat. Almost 80% of what we consume in Africa is being imported. Africa imported last year over 55 million tons of wheat. 40% of that, actually came from Russia and Ukraine. So the price of wheat in the last 3 months, for example, has more than doubled. So it is a serious issue. And if you look at what is happening today, I don't think, we're seeing, any relief going forward. So my take on this is that Africa must look inwards. We must try as much as possible, to develop a workable local solutions to our local problems, which means that we have to start adding value, we have to start producing, because it's a wake-up call for us. It has exposed our vulnerability.
Absolutely. But we've had this conversation about we've got arable land that is not being utilized. We have to focus on agri-processing. How do we, create stronger economies? And it still hasn't happened.
Exactly.
And crises are not going to wait for us to be ready.
Exactly.
So how are you,
exactly.
Many industrialists like you, trying to fix that?
Well, that is the issue. You see, Africa has 60% of the world's arable land, and we have the land mass, almost 30 square kilometers. We have the people, 1.4 billion people. So meaning that we are a huge, huge population in Africa. So we really need to look inwards to be able to at least feed ourselves. So food security, as far as I'm concerned, is the most important thing for us. Because if, for example, we don't have that, it's going to be a problem for us.
So the African Continental Free Trade Area was this incredible policy that was being created ahead of the pandemic, and it went live during the pandemic. And this is a question I ask to most people, when I talk about what the impact has been. Have you seen a tangible difference in terms of trade, intra-Africa trade, because of the Continental Free Trade Area?
Well, as you said, it came into effect in 2019, and it is a great opportunity for Africa, to enhance, and deepen the economic integration of Africa. However, there are quite a few concerns, from some countries, understandably so. For example, some countries are concerned, that, there's a lot of insecurity, proliferation of arms, from between countries, and also the fact that previous ETLS and EAC, arrangements have not really been successful. So we have those issues. And also, illegal migration. So some countries have concern, but I believe it is an opportunity for Africa to actually come together and make this work.
But it hasn't had an impact yet?
Not yet. I haven't seen that much of it. And part of the reason is because we have a lot of infrastructure deficit in Africa. And for this to work, we really need to fix our infrastructure, the ports, the rails, and what have you. And for example, I had a vessel that loaded from Port Harcourt to Lomé. It took almost 3 weeks before the vessel could berth. So really, it is an issue. So we really need to fix our infrastructure space for this to succeed.
Okay, so is it infrastructure, is it policy, is it all of those processes at the borders?
The borders, the ports, the rails, what have you, but the leaders need to also come together. And some of the countries in Africa are also really, not supporting this, I would say. For example, and that is simply...
You're talking about your country?
No, I'm not talking about Nigeria, but I will not mention the country. But the thing is, some of the countries believe that, with this policy, that they are losing, revenue as far as tariffs are concerned. Of course, it is understandable. For example, I have a factory in Sokoto, which is very close to Niger border, right? Cement factory. And, if we export to Niger and to Burkina Faso, for example, which is, again, about 300-400 kilometers from Sokoto, the price of cement, comes down because you don't have to pay any tariffs. But then again, the countries are actually losing tariffs because if it is coming from within the continent as, part of the African Continental Free Trade Arrangement, duty or tariffs are not supposed to be paid.
And that's so interesting because one of the reasons, and this is, widely reported, is that the cement industry, and basically many industries in Nigeria were able to grow because of what people would call protectionist policies or tariffs on imported goods.
Yes.
So how do you play up, tariffs to try and help grow a local sector versus trying to push intra-Africa trade?
Well, see, that is the issue, because the countries need to understand. You see, because if you are trying to protect your industries, one, there's the protection issue, and then two, there's the issue of tariffs. Some countries believe that if you have this arrangement, you will not be able to, make money as far as tariffs are concerned. But then what is happening is that if the price of cement, for example, in Niger, if you don't pay duty in Nigeria or Niger, it is maybe 20-30% less than what you sell, maybe, say, for example, in Burkina Faso. So at the end of the day, yes, the governments are making money as far as tariffs are concerned, but then the price of the commodity is much higher for the consumers in those countries. So that is what you need to balance, really.
I want to talk about what you've been doing at the BUA Group, and actually you've been so busy during the pandemic. I've been watching you very closely. I mean, you've listed some businesses, your food and cement business. You're talking about lithium. You're talking about commodities a lot. And it kind of gives me, a sense of what you're banking on as future sectors, right? So you're thinking electric vehicles, you're thinking about commodities and hopefully some processing, and you're also talking about infrastructure. Where's your mind at? And could you give us a sense of what businesses in the room could be doing to build resilience as these new risks come to the fore?
Thank you. Yes, to start with, BUA is a company established in 1988, and it's a proudly Nigerian, African, foods, mining, manufacturing, and infrastructure business, and with key investments in cement, sugar refining, pasta, flour milling, construction, oil and gas, amongst others. So on the cement business, we have 7 plants scattered across, Nigeria with various capacities, with a combined, capacity of 11 million tons as at today. We are commissioning 2 more lines next year, so that would, give us 70 million tons in total, 70 million tons per annum. And we decided 2 years ago, to list all the cement business and as BUA Cement PLC And today we are one of the top 5 publicly listed companies on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And 95% of our raw materials come in locally from Nigeria. So that is the beauty, and that is what I keep, saying in terms of, trying to look inwards, add value to what we have and process what we have. Because with all the issues that we're having right now, our cement business actually is not suffering at all, because we really don't need any foreign exchange whatsoever, for us to process and produce cement in Nigeria.
Okay, so, we know one of the themes is about what African leaders are going to be doing in terms of alignment during this geopolitical issue that we're seeing playing out in Europe. There's been a big question about whether Africa is going to be aligning itself with other emerging markets, so the likes, of Russia and India and Brazil, and of course China being a big player on the continent. What do you think is going to be the most important thing for the African continent to do right now? Is it about alignment? Do you think it's going to be telling?
The most important thing for us to do in Africa is to really look inwards. This is a wake-up call, as I said, for us to, one, be able to produce, add value, and invest in Africa, because this has really exposed us as a continent. Because we have seen today, apart from food that we talked about, look at the price of energy today. And even though some countries in Africa are actually producing crude, but at the end of the day, it makes it so difficult, because if you look at the price of diesel in Nigeria today, talking about Nigeria because that is where I have experience, it has almost tripled. So in terms of doing business, it has become a lot more expensive. And then again, food security is the most important thing. So I think we need to concentrate on Africa, to be able to do more, to be able to produce, add value, and invest. That is the only way we can actually develop. That is my opinion.
And do you think that, you're talking about food